Today we are entering the world of measure theory, starting from its very foundations. This is a subject that often feels abstract at first encounter, but its purpose is remarkably simple. Measure theory exists because we want to talk about size in a very general and reliable way. We want to assign sizes to sets that may be irregular, fragmented, or infinite in number. We also want to integrate functions that are far more complicated than those we meet in elementary calculus. It is worth pausing immediately to emphasize something reassuring. Measure theory does not abandon intuition. Instead, it carefully refines it. The abstraction is not there to confuse you, but to remove ambiguity. The goal is clarity, consistency, and long-term stability of ideas. Classically, we know how to measure the length of an interval, the area of a rectangle, or the volume of a box. These ideas work beautifully for simple geometric objects. However, as analysis develops, we encounter sets that are no longer smooth or nicely shaped. We encounter functions that oscillate, jump, or behave irregularly. The classical tools are no longer sufficient. Measure theory answers a simple but profound question. Which set should have a size, and how should that size behave? At the same time, it prepares the ground for integration, convergence, probability theory, and much of modern analysis. Let us pause and reflect on this motivation. Measure theory is not about inventing new objects. It is about deciding which objects we are allowed to measure and under what rules. Everything that follows is built carefully around this decision. With this motivation in mind, we turn to the first fundamental structure, measurable sets and sigma algebras. A sigma algebra is best understood as a carefully chosen collection of sets. Not all subsets of a given space behave well when we try to assign sizes. Some collections are too wild. Others lack stability. A sigma algebra is designed to be just right. Let us say this slowly. A sigma algebra is a collection of subsets of a given space that satisfies three essential properties. First, it contains the empty set. This is natural, because a set with nothing in it should always be measurable. Second, it is closed under complements. This means that whenever a set is considered measurable, its opposite, the part of the space outside it, is also measurable. Intuitively, if we can measure a region, we should also be able to measure what remains when we remove that region. The third property is closure under countable unions. This is perhaps the most important and the most subtle requirement. It means that if we take a countable list of measurable sets and we combine them all together, the resulting set is still measurable. This reflects the idea that size should behave well under repeated aggregation, even infinitely many times, as long as the process is countable. It is worth repeating this idea in different words. A sigma algebra is stable under taking complements, and stable under forming unions of countably many sets. This stability is what allows measure theory to work smoothly. Whenever a set belongs to a sigma algebra, we call it measurable. So when we say that a set is measurable, we are really saying that it belongs to a particular, pre-selected collection of sets that behave well together. Let us pause and reflect. Measurability is not an intrinsic property of a set alone. It depends on the sigma algebra we have chosen. The same subset might be measurable in one context and not measurable in another. This dependence is not a flaw. It is a feature. It allows flexibility while preserving structure. Now let us talk about generated sigma algebras. Often, we do not want to specify every measurable set directly. Instead, we start from a simpler family of sets that we understand well, and we ask for the smallest sigma algebra that contains them. This smallest sigma algebra is called the sigma algebra generated by those sets. This idea is extremely important. We begin with simple building blocks, and we allow ourselves to form complements and countable unions repeatedly until no more new sets appear. The result is a rich collection of measurable sets, built systematically from simple pieces. A particularly important example is a collection of Borel sets. These are the sets generated by open sets. Open sets are geometrically intuitive. They describe regions without boundaries. By starting from open sets and generating a sigma algebra, we obtain a very large and flexible class of sets that still behave well under measurement. It is worth repeating again what it means for a set to be measurable. A set is measurable if it belongs to the chosen sigma algebra. This definition may sound circular at first, but its power lies in the structure of the sigma algebra itself. Let us now move gently to the idea of measurable spaces and measurable functions. A measurable space is simply a pair consisting of a set and a sigma algebra on that set. The underlying set tells us what objects we are working with. The sigma algebra tells us which subsets we are allowed to measure. Neither component alone is sufficient. Together, they define a measurable universe. It is worth emphasizing this pairing. The same underlying set can support many different sigma algebras. Each choice leads to a different measurable space. This flexibility allows measure theory to adapt to many contexts, from geometry to probability to functional analysis. Now we introduce measurable functions. Intuitively, a measurable function is one that respects the measurable structure. It does not create pathological behavior when we look at inverse images of measurable sets. More slowly, a function is measurable if, whenever we take a measurable set in the target space, the set of all points in the domain that map into it is measurable in the domain. This condition ensures compatibility between structures. Let us say this again in calmer words. Measurability of a function means that the function does not tear apart the measurable structure. It translates measurable sets into measurable preimages. In this sense, measurable functions preserve structure. Borel measurable functions are functions whose preimages of Borel sets are measurable. Since Borel sets are generated from open sets, this requirement often reduces to checking behavior with respect to open sets. Conceptually, Borel measurability ensures that the function behaves well with respect to the topology. It is worth repeating that measurability is not about continuity. A function can be highly discontinuous and still be measurable. Measurability is a weaker, but more flexible, condition that focuses on set structure rather than local smoothness. Let us pause and summarize. We have introduced sigma algebras, measurable sets, measurable spaces, and measurable functions. Each concept is designed to ensure stability under operations that are essential for integration and limit. We now turn to indicator functions and simple functions, which form the bridge between sets and functions. An indicator function is the simplest possible function associated with a set. It takes one value on the set and another value outside the set. Conceptually, it is a way of turning a set into a function. Indicator functions are measurable whenever the underlying set is measurable. This makes them fundamental building blocks. They allow us to translate questions about sets into questions about functions. Simple functions are built by combining indicator functions. A simple function takes only finitely many values, each on a measurable set. You can think of it as a finite, weighted combination of indicator functions. It is worth repeating why simple functions matter. They are easy to integrate. They are easy to understand. And most importantly, more complicated measurable functions can be approximated by simple functions in a systematic way. Approximation is a recurring theme in analysis. Simple functions serve as the first step in understanding integration. They allow us to define integrals in a controlled setting and then extend the definition gradually. Let us pause and reflect again. Indicator functions correspond to sets. Simple functions correspond to finite combinations of sets. From these simple objects, we build the general theory of integration. We now arrive at the concept of a measure. A measure assigns a size to measurable sets. This size can represent length, area, volume, probability, or more abstract quantities. The key idea is consistency. A measure must assign zero size to the empty set. It must assign non-negative sizes to sets. Most importantly, it must be countably additive. Countable additivity means the following. If we have a countable collection of disjoint measurable sets, then the size of their union is the sum of their size. This property distinguishes measures from more naive notions of size. Finite additivity alone is not sufficient. Countable additivity ensures that limits behave correctly. It ensures that size is compatible with infinite processes, which are unavoidable in analysis. It is worth emphasizing this point slowly. Countable additivity allows us to pass from finite approximations to infinite structures. Without it, integration and convergence would fail in subtle but serious ways. Measures are also monotone. If one measurable set is contained within another, then its size cannot be larger. This property aligns with intuition and ensures internal consistency. A measure space is a measurable space together with a measure. Once again, the pairing is essential. The sigma algebra tells us which sets can be measured. The measure tells us how large they are. Let us repeat this unifying idea. A measure space provides a complete framework, a universe of sets, a collection of measurable subsets, and a rule for assigning size that behaves well under limits. At this point, it is helpful to pause and gather the threads. We began with motivation, the need to measure complicated sets and integrate complicated functions. We introduced algebras to control which sets are measurable. We defined measurable spaces to formalize this structure. We introduced measurable functions to ensure compatibility. We used indicator and simple functions as building blocks. Finally, we introduced measures to assign size in a consistent, countably additive way. Let us conclude slowly and calmly. Measure theory is not a collection of disconnected definitions. It is a coherent framework. Each concept supports the others. Together, they allow us to define integration, study convergence, and build probability theory on solid foundations. These ideas quietly underpin much of modern mathematics. They appear in probability theory, where measures describe uncertainty. They appear in analysis, where integration replaces summation. They appear in mathematical physics, where continuous systems require careful treatment.